Hola, welcome. Today I'm going to be running you through why using a smaller range of motion is sometimes better for muscle growth. So if the main goal for you right now is muscle growth, then actually just using shortened ranges of motion can sometimes be very, very beneficial. And I'm going to go through the reasons now, and I'm going to try and do it fairly speedy, just to not take up too much of your time. So I've got a little list, and we're going to go through them. So first of all, just to clarify, which range of motion are we talking about? So if we are talking about exercises in general, we're usually looking at, or what I'm going to talk about today, is going to be the deeper ranges of motion. So the more lengthened ranges of motion. That looks like the bottom end of a bench press, that looks like the bottom end of a squat, that looks like the bottom end of an RDL. We're looking at those lengthened positions. That's what we're going to be focusing on in terms of a shorter range of motion. So number one, the first benefit is actually, and I really like this one, a mobility-based benefit. So when we are practicing getting stronger or building muscle within deeper ranges of motion, what we actually have there is a mobility exercise built into your exercise plan. So instead of having to do, and don't get me wrong, I quite like doing a small sort of movement prep or mobility-based work for specific areas that need working on at the beginning of a session, because then just make your warm-up a little bit more productive. But if you haven't got that much time, if you're a bit pressed for time, then baking your mobility work into your strength training is a really good idea. So doing deeper ranges of motion is better for your joint health and usually better for the muscles as well. And we're going to get into it. It's going to be better for hypertrophy or muscle growth. So when we're referring to mobility, a lot of people confuse mobility and flexibility. Flexibility is usually referring to the muscle itself, the lengthening of the muscle. When we're referring to mobility, we're usually talking about the strength or taking the joint through a specific range of motion. So it's much more focused towards the joint rather than the muscle itself. And it's usually when people have mobility issues, it tends to be that they just can't access a certain range of motion, because people usually say, okay, well, if my mobility is bad, surely flexibility like exercises like stretching, static stretching, will fix that. And it's not usually the case, because sometimes you can have muscles that aren't, it's not like they've got a flexibility problem, they're not exactly tight, but mobility's bad, and it's usually because you're just not particularly strong in that deeper range of motion, and actually you're struggling to access it, and that's the main issue here. So it's actually building strength through a range of motion at the joint. So that's benefit number one. Number two is the actual hypertrophy or muscle growth benefit, which is that for most exercises, and I say most because it's not all, but it is most, you will find that biomechanically it is going to be more difficult at the deeper end range of motion. So what do I mean by this? I'm going to put up a little diagram of this somewhere just to make it easier to understand. When we're talking about varying resistance, we're usually talking about where in the range of motion is, basically the range of motion isn't a consistent difficulty. You're going to find that at one end of the range of motion it's going to be much easier than at the other. When we're doing free weight exercises specifically, we're going to find that in almost anything. So for example, if you were to do a bicep curl, if you were to hold your arm at 90 degrees with the dumbbell out, that's going to be very hard. But if you bring your hand all the way up to here and hold it, then actually there's pretty much no tension on your bicep at all. So when we're talking about deeper ranges of motion, I'm going to show you a video of me doing a bench press somewhere here. And you can see as I get to the bottom, basically what we have is an elongated moment arm. And the moment arm is just a biomechanical term that is given to the distance. It's the perpendicular distance between the vertical line of resistance. Well, it doesn't have to be vertical, but in this case it is. In this case, the line of resistance is vertical because it's gravity. So gravity is acting upon the barbell, the weight that I'm lifting. So what I have to do is I have to draw a parallel line to that going through my shoulder joint, because at the moment during my bench press, we're measuring this based on my pec or my chest muscle, which is going to be responsible for the horizontal adduction of my shoulder. So basically that just means bringing my arm closer towards the midline of my body. You see this sort of flex in the shoulder here? That's my pec contracting and lengthening. Contracting. So that's what it's doing. So when we're measuring the moment arm, is the perpendicular distance between these two lines, and that's it. Now, the longer that moment arm is, the harder it is going to be, the more mechanical tension my pec is going to be experiencing. The shorter it is, the less tension goes through it. So actually, when we're looking at deeper end range of motion training, for a lot of exercises, we are going to find that we just have more mechanical tension in the deeper end ranges of motion. And that's a good thing, because it means that we're exposing those muscles to more mechanical tension, and therefore we get more growth. So it's a win-win. Not only do we have our mobility benefit, but also we are driving more mechanical tension to those target muscles. So rather than coming back up to the top where we have less mechanical tension, we can actually just increase the exposure at the bottom. And this leads me on to number 3, which is kind of what we've just said. And I know a lot of people sort of shun this these days because it was a bigger thing in the 2010s, and then it kind of crashed and burned because everybody was like, "Oh, that was weird. Why did we all talk about that?" But it does actually. I think it's one of those more underrated things now. It was definitely overstated before, but that is time under tension, because we do need we need to hit a certain threshold of time under tension. Basically, we could just swap out time under tension for the exposure to that tension. It's the same thing. And you need to hit a certain threshold to be able to stimulate growth, because essentially that's what volume is. So when we're talking about actually having more time under tension with that muscle, again, let's go back to our biomechanics thing we just talked about. When I'm coming up to the top of my bench press, if I'm spending, let's say 30% of my set up here at the top before coming down to the bottom and then coming straight back up again. And let's be honest, a lot of people probably do that because it's easier up here. So naturally, you are inclined to try and stay up here. You're doing it naturally. Your body's trying to be as efficient as possible. So instead, what we do is we take that and we go, actually, let's just stay down here. Let's stay where it's tough. Let's stay where this bit's hard and it's actually challenging for the target muscle. Again, remember, the goal is, that is the key thing here. It's the context. And we are talking specifically about growth. If there was another goal in mind, maybe this wouldn't be the way to go. But for the sake of growth, it's definitely something to consider. The last one here is the one I'm going to speak least about because it's a little bit, it's sort of applies to some muscle groups. There is some research that's come out in the last few years suggesting that when the fibers are experiencing mechanical tension when they're in a lengthened position, that for some muscle groups they do tend to experience a little bit more growth than when they are in the more contracted position. But these are going to be very small differences, almost negligible. But it's always something to keep in mind. It's always a benefit to chuck in there. Along with the other things that we've just added there, I think it's absolutely a case to be made that a lot of your training for growth-specific movements could be catered towards this. Could be catered towards shorter, so what this whole video is about, shorter ranges of motion in deeper, more lengthened positions. Upon recording this, I recorded all this and I had my little list. And I've actually just thought of another benefit as well, so I'm going to chuck it in here at the end. Very messily, this video, not quite my best structure, I have to say, but another benefit we could look at is the fact that because it is harder, you are going to have to drop some weight. By the way, that's why a lot of people don't like doing this, because it is humbling. You have to drop the weight to stay in that bottom end range of motion. Quite often, like I said, we have to drop the weight. Not even quite often. All the time, you're going to have to drop the weight, and therefore what we still get is a good stimulus in terms of, as long as we're pushing close proximity to failure, we know that we have a significant load on that, or we should, and therefore we've got enough mechanical tension. So actually, all we've done there is reduce the overall load required to hit those two criteria, which is, again, proximity to failure, close proximity to failure, and sufficient mechanical tension. Really the only two things we need to consider when we're talking about muscle growth specifically. And actually, if we've done that, then what we can see is we see an improvement in terms of overall fatigue, because if we're lifting less load, that's less fatigue in terms of our connective tissues, but also systemically as well. So we have these kind of fatigue payoff benefit that we also get with this style of training. Anyway, that is it, guys. I hope you did enjoy. I hope you learned something. I hope this was helpful. And if you've got any questions, please feel free, fire them below. If you don't agree with me, please feel free. Fire it below. Let's just keep it respectful. We love a good debate, but let's not be calling anyone any names like specky twat or something like that. It's quite hurtful. So yeah, that's it. I don't really know how to end this video, so please subscribe if you're new, and if you want to, obviously. And if this video helped you out, if you liked it, I definitely appreciate it as well. And yeah, that's everything. So I'll catch you in the next one. See you soon.